It is the 26th day of January 2018. My name is Solis Rose Quarter. Welcome to News 360.
And my name is Alfred Okanse. Coming up in the bulletin tonight.
News 360 Headlines is brought to you by
Water supply to most parts of the country to be rationed to ensure equitable distribution.
Our Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Michael Quaye, to be sworn in as acting president for the second time in a week.
Local government minister summoned by Parliament over the decision by Births and Deaths Registry to blacklist the registration of some local names.
In business tonight, the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana asked government to scrap the special petroleum levy of 15% from the petroleum price build-up.
And on the international front, President Donald Trump has told global finance leaders he will always put the U.S. first when it comes to trade, but that does not mean America alone. So details of these stories and many more, including some sports and entertainment, in the next 1 hour here on News 360.
And let's start with an issue that has been trending. And the Ministry of Local Government will on Tuesday appear before Parliament to justify the decision by the Births and Deaths Registry to ban the registration of some local names they consider titles. Both sides of the House agreed the ministry does not have the powers to enforce what they described as an illegality without coming through Parliament.
A name is a word or group of words which a person or thing is known, addressed, or referred to. Names like Mame, Papa, Nana, Na, Junior, Nene, Ni, and Ohima are mostly used as tool names and title for leaders in the traditional setup. People, however, maintain some of them as their names. This, according to the Births and Deaths Registry, will no longer be accepted under a new policy. Raising the issue on the floor of Parliament, the Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu questioned the basis for the policy.
I have looked at the Registration of Births and Deaths Act 1965, Act 301. And Mr. Speaker, I have looked at the clause in relation to registration of births, in particular 10. Registration of names subsequent to registration of birth. If they want a revision of the law, this is the appropriate institution. The Minister for Local Government and the Births and Deaths Registry should give us pause why they should not stop this illegality, because they do not have the authority under the laws of Ghana to ban those names.
The first Deputy Speaker was incensed with the development.
And I think it must be understood that the names Ni, Nana, Tope, and other things, they have relevance in our culture. Mr. Speaker, I call my father Papa. So if I name my son after my father, I can't call him by his raw name. I think that it is time public and civil servants understood that the powers given to them are all written in codes, and they are not entitled to exercise any powers that Parliament has not given to them.
The Majority Leader shared similar sentiments.
It doesn't lie in the mouth and indeed in the power of the registrar of births that a name should be given or should not be given. Mr. Speaker, the first citizen of this country bears the name Nana. It is not an icon. It is not a title. You cannot sit somewhere and say that I will not allow you to use that name. I'm wondering where he thinks he's deriving his powers from.
He agreed the sector minister be summoned.
Mr. Speaker, confusion should not be introduced where there is no confusion. And I believe we should invite the registrar in the company of his superintending minister to come and explain to us what the meaning of this is and where he thinks he's deriving his authority from.
The Speaker consequently directed that the ministry appears before the House.
Under the English legal system, a writ of quo warranto will have been issued immediately by Parliament. For now, we will simply invite the Honourable Minister to seek the relevant advices and let Parliament know what has been done to reverse this or to justify it before this House.
Meanwhile, pressure group Occupy Ghana has petitioned the Attorney General, Gloria Ekofo, over blacklisted indigenous names by the Births and Deaths Registry. Now, the registry is again determining the order in which names must be written, giving prominence to foreign names over indigenous Ghanaian names. But Occupy Ghana, in a petition to the Attorney General and a copy to the local government minister, said the registry's actions has no basis in law and urged the Attorney General to take steps to address the issue since it is a gross violation of the rights of Ghanaians. The group has dismissed the registrar's claims that it is empowered to do this on the basis of the Registration of Births and Deaths Act 1965, Act 301. According to Occupy Ghana, it had checked that and all relevant laws, including the regulations passed under the Act, and held that not seen any provision that either supports this policy or gives the registrars of birth and deaths any power to refuse to register any name, arguing that the registry's stance is a gross violation of the rights of Ghanaians to choose names, particularly Ghanaian names, as they deem it fit for their children, subject to the right to change one's name at any time later in life. The group therefore called on the Attorney General to order the registry to stop such acts, else they will proceed to court within the next 30 days.
Now, let's still stay on this issue and look at what the Births and Deaths Act 1965, Act 301, what it says. Section 10 basically looks at the registration of a name subsequent to this particular act. Now, Article 1 says, where a birth had been registered and it is desired to be changed, the name of the child, or where a birth has been registered without a name and a name is subsequently given to the child, the parent or guardian of the child may within 12 months after the registration of the birth deliver to the registrar a certificate stating the name now given to the child and the registrar. Now, upon receipt of such certificate and upon payment of the prescribed fee shall, without any erasure of the original entry, forthwith enter in the register the name mentioned in the certificate as having been given to such a child. And part 2 says every such certificate shall be signed either by the person who performed the rite of baptism upon the occasion on which the name was given or altered, or if the child is not baptized, by the parent or guardian of the child. So that is basically what the Act says regarding naming and registration in the country.
Also do know some Ghanaians have issued already a court action against the Births and Deaths Registry on this matter. We're staying with going to Parliament, where Parliament will sit tomorrow, January 27, to swear in the Speaker, Professor Michael Okoye, as President of the Republic in the absence of both the President and the Vice President. President Akufo-Addo is leaving for Ethiopia tomorrow and will return on Wednesday, January 31, as the Vice President remains on medical leave in the United Kingdom.
The President, in a communication to Parliament, served notice of a trip to Ethiopia to participate in the 30th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the African Union, and then to South Africa to attend the funeral of Hugh Masekela. The Majority Leader, Osei Mensah-Bonsu, told the House of the scheduled meeting on Saturday for the swearing-in ceremony. This will be the second time in a week The Speaker is being sworn in as President. Last Sunday, Professor Michael Quaye took the oath of office of the President in an emergency sitting in Parliament when the President travelled to Liberia to attend George Weah's inauguration as President in the absence of the Vice President, who was on a medical leave. Some minority members described as needless the swearing-in of the Speaker anytime the President and Vice President are out of the jurisdiction of Ghana.
I don't think this is sustainable. So it's entirely the responsibility of the government of the day to come clear and come clean so that we can understand the conditions that would warrant us to make the kinds of sacrifices that we are expected to make. As it is now, a lot of us don't feel that it is justified to always call us at the neck of time, as it is today, for us to come in tomorrow and swear in the Speaker as the acting President. It is not good for good governance.
The majority leader, however, maintains it is a constitutional requirement.
It's a whenever clause. What's the meaning of whenever? Any time, for as long as it happens. Unfortunately, if you look closely at 8 says whenever the President is absent from Ghana or is for any other reason unable to perform his functions. What it means is that if the President is absent from Ghana, it should be construed that he's unable to perform his functions. And that is where, as a nation, maybe we should come together to see whether we will be able to live with this. Because within 1 week, we happen to swear in the Speaker as President, and then we're swearing him in the second time.
But do you then agree with people who think that that clause should be reviewed?
We should. There are many areas in the Constitution where, as a nation, we have to have a second look at. And I agree that we should holistically review the Constitution.
A former Speaker of Parliament, Edward Doajaho, was said to have violated the Constitution when he refused to take the oath of office as President for the second time in the absence of then both President and his vice from Ghana in November 2014, arguing he had taken the oath earlier. The chief executive of Accra-based City FM, Samuel Atamensa, and US-based Ghanaian lawyer Professor Stephen Kweku-Asare petitioned the Supreme Court for interpretation of Article 60, 11 and 12. A 9-member Supreme Court panel chaired by Justice Sophia Kufu ruled that the Speaker is obliged to take the oath of office as President whenever both the President and his vice are out of the jurisdiction. The swearing in, according to the highest court of the land, is not a mere formality, but to remind the Speaker that while he ordinarily is the head of the legislature, he has additional responsibilities as President.
Now, away from that, let's do some other stories. And the senior minister, Yao Safo Mafo, wants adequate transparency and accountability in processes leading to the execution of PPP agreements and implementation of projects. This, he said, will ensure that stakeholders have relevant information on projects regularly to elicit their interest in the country's development agenda.
Public-private partnership is a funding model for a public infrastructure project where government is partnered by a private sector with a specific area of expertise. Over the years, PPP agreements and project executions have been fraught with lack of transparency and accountability. To ensure that all non-confidential information relating to PPP contracts are made available to the public at the pre- and as well as at the post-procurement phase, the Ministry of Finance and the World Bank have launched a PPP disclosure framework and a web-based portal for the PPP program in Ghana.
It's critical to have this kind of transparency, it's overarching governance framework for PPPs to give confidence not only to domestic private investors but also to external private investors.
The senior minister said a bill intended to strengthen the legal and regulatory framework for PPP before Cabinet will be submitted to Parliament for consideration.
We are at the stage where the draft bill is with the committee that is responsible for looking at laws. Don't forget that Parliament is going to sit this time around. They have only 34 days of sitting. So if you don't get there in time, you may not even get it through at this sitting.
He insisted transparency is key in doing away with the perception that PPP projects are always given out to a specific group of people without recourse to regulations.
We should all be sure that the data we are using are correct. This is very important. You can't go and buy a machine for 10 cedis and record it at 12 cedis. So when we talk about transparency, we are talking about project cost. We are talking about the actual investment values. There must be tracking system. For instance, that somebody comes in, he's going to do mining, and he says, I'm investing $800 million US. We must make sure that the system tracks the investment of $800 million.
An anti-graft group, Dynamic Youth Movement of Ghana, has sued the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SRAJ, and the Attorney General over the controversial $2.25 billion energy sector bond. At a news conference in Accra, convener of the group, Edward Tuto, maintained that the findings of SRAJ is enough to press charges of conflict of interest against the Finance Minister.
The group also claims SRAJ, in determining a petition on the bond, made some serious pronouncement which in its view contravenes aspects of the 1992 Constitution.
DIMOC is also taking on SRAJ because she delved into declaring judgment on Ken Ofori-Atta with regard to the issue of conflict of interest. We believe that it will take a court of competent jurisdiction to pass judgment on that matter and not SRAJ.
The anti-graft group maintains that the findings by SRAJ are enough to press charges against the Finance Minister.
DIMOC is of the unalloyed conviction that breaching our laws comes with consequences, and the Supreme Court is the best place to go so that our laws can be interpreted and enforced to its logical conclusion. This is why we have gone to the Supreme Court.
The group is seeking, among other things, from the Apex Court a declaration that, by going beyond investigations to make a pronouncement of guilt or otherwise on Ken Ofori-Atta in respect of the allegation of breach of conflict of interest, SRAJ contravened Article 287 of the 1992 Constitution. The group also wants the court to declare that failure by the Finance Minister to declare his shareholding interest in DataBank Financial Services Limited, DataBank Brokerage Limited, and DataBank Financial Holdings Limited to the Auditor General before taking office as Minister of Finance, as found by SRAJ, contravenes Article 2861A of the 1992 Constitution. The group on May 8, 2017, petitioned the Securities Exchange Commission (SEC) to investigate the transparency of the bond, its classification, and a claim of possible conflict of interest in the issuance of the said bond. In its findings, SRAJ established the Finance Minister breached the guidelines of the government securities market for primary dealers that regulate the issuance of government securities.
Now, the General Secretary of the Ghana National Association of Teachers, NAT, David Ofori-Achampong, has cautioned teachers against late presentation of documents to avert issues regarding recurrence of salary arrears payment. The salaries of 239 teachers are likely to be suspended if they do not provide their promotion letters and rectify some anomalies on their documents.
General Secretary of NAT, David Ofori-Achampong, referred to the ongoing validation exercise for teachers over their salary arrears, of which more than 70,000 teachers nationwide have been cleared. The audit service has cleared 25,000 more teachers out of 65,000 of them to be paid. The General Secretary of NAT, David Ofori-Achampong, said these teachers would be paid by the end of March.
The audit service gave us 88 days to complete the exercise. Exactly. And the total number of people involved is 65,000. So if 25,000 are coming out, then we'll still have 25,000 minus 65,000, at least 40,000 more. But subsequently, month-on-month basis, depending on numbers that have been validated.
He, however, expressed concern over some 239 teachers whose documents are still not updated. Some failed to provide adequate information of their promotion letters and could not trace their ID numbers. The General Secretary implored the audit service to link on with these teachers and get their salaries paid by the end of February.
When we sat down, we agreed that, look, Ghana Education Service Control Accountant, work fast on these numbers and get them paid before even March. So we are sure these 239 people could be paid earliest by February.
He again warned teachers in the districts to facilitate the presentation of the documents to prevent the payment of arrears.
The results have just been released. We believe that by the end of this month, by the end of February, we should have settled it, because now we are fast-tracking the process. There's not going to be delays in the districts where you have to go to establishment warrant, and there is Ministry of Education, Ministry of Ghana Education Service or Control. We are working so that we can get this thing done. This year we'll also get it done. Then it means that the promotion arrears is a thing of the past.
Meanwhile, NAT is confident the validation exercise would end this year.
Let's still stay with the Ghana National Association of Teachers, because that particular association, as NAT is saying, it will support the decision of the Ghana Education Service after the investigations into the sex scandal involving the head teacher of the school in the Central Region. General Secretary of NAT, David Ofori-Acheampong, said the headmaster has flouted Section 53 of GES Code of Conduct, which prevents teachers from engaging in a relationship with a student in a school or another institution.
NAT emphasized that the headmaster violated Section 53 of the Code of Conduct of the Ghana Education Service. The section stipulates that teachers are not to be in a relationship with students either in their school or in another institution. The association has therefore asked the GES to tighten the investigative process to ensure justice.
The same code specifies the punishment. It comes with suspension. It comes with what do you call it, a reduction in your rank and position. It comes with dismissal. So it's up to the panel that will sit to look at the case to decide which of the sanctions they would apply. It will depend on the kind of evidence that he might also turn in, which may mitigate against any of the sanctions that the committee might decide to apply.
The General Secretary has therefore asked teachers to serve as good role models to pupils and students they teach.
It is not right. It is morally incorrect, because the person who is looking up to you for education, because you teach people about good citizenship, sexual behavior, what you ought to do, what you don't need to do, and then you go doing the same thing elsewhere. If it comes out like it has come, then you have no case. But in this particular instance, he's flouted the regulations. Even though the lady says that he's his boyfriend, fine, that is a private matter. But so far as we as teachers are concerned, he's brought our name into disrepute.
Meanwhile, some cross-section of the public, including a lawyer, Maurice Ampao, has accused NAT's General Secretary for attempting to support the actions of the headmaster. But the NAT Secretary disagrees.
I'm not a lawyer, but you look at the whole circumstances and ask yourself, if you talk about criminality, can we obtain a conviction of the gentleman? In the face of the fact that the lady says they are in a relationship, in the face of the fact that the lady says that evidence says that she's going to be 20 years, in the face of the fact that the police have gone to interview the lady and they have realized that there's no way they can prosecute, and you stand on television and you accuse people and tell me that I must resign my position? He is a concert lawyer.
A former presiding bishop of the Methodist Church of Ghana, Reverend Dr. Robert Aboagye-Mensah, has challenged religious leaders to lead exemplary lives for their members to emulate. Now, speaking at an anti-corruption symposium, he said religious leaders have the responsibility to educate their members on the need to maintain moral integrity in all areas of their lives.
At an anti-corruption symposium for church leaders in Accra, speakers emphasized the role of Christians in eliminating corruption. They say Christians who are in politics and in senior executive management positions must be leading examples, setting a strong culture of honesty and integrity.
For us as Christians, there's no other way except to determine to live the way God wants us. You want a passport, you go through a middleman. you want a visa, you go through a middle person. That's all corruption. Because you're willing to bend the rules. You want a building permit. You don't want to go the right way. You still want somebody else to talk to somebody else, to talk to somebody else. So we are all involved.
A former presiding bishop of the Methodist Church of Ghana, Reverend Dr. Robert Abuaji Mensah, said President Akufo-Addo's fight against corruption must be supported by all.
Doesn't matter whoever is caught in the net. We don't go behind the doors and try and cut the net somewhere for such people to disappear. The Galamsey issue has been going on. We've been arresting some of the young people and so on. How many of the big men and women in this country have even been sent to court to address things like that? The kind of machines and tractors and so on that these young people are using. You ask them, where did they get the money from?
What a worrying development. Water shortage looms as supply to most parts of the country will soon be rationed to ensure equitable distribution. The Ghana Water Company Limited cited the harsh Harmattan weather as well as human activity as the cause.
Water is ranked second to oxygen as an essential element for life. The effect of water scarcity can be catastrophic. According to the Ghana Water Company, it is experiencing some challenges in water supply due to the dry season. Communications manager Stanley Mate noted the situation has led to intermittent water supply in most cities and towns nationwide.
Especially within the Teshin-Nongwa and Tema municipalities, because we've had to shut down the desalination plant in Teshin-Nongwa to enable us go back to the negotiation table to renegotiate the contract.
The factors go beyond the dry season challenge.
We clear the banks of the river. We cut trees that protect the river body, and so then the river bodies are exposed, and so the rate of evaporation becomes higher. Pollution is also it's also a contributory factor to the situation. You know, Galamsey is still ongoing, and so we need to sustain the fight against it. We don't have to relent in what we are doing at all.
Water production in the western region has dropped by some 60%.
Now it's terrible in the western region. So, because as I speak with you, we are only producing at 40% capacity in the western region. So, Sekondi, Takoradi is challenged, and we have to ration water in that area. The three northern regions are also challenged because the levels are so low that we are unable to abstract enough for production. So we are treating far below capacity in all three regions.
Consumers are advised to cease indiscriminate watering of lawns with treated water, moderate the use of treated water for car washing through the use of buckets.
Now, 3 Ghanaian cocoa farmers have been awarded International Cocoa of Excellence Award in France for producing quality cocoa beans. The award is aimed at promoting and encouraging cocoa farmers to produce quality cocoa beans.
166 samples of cocoa beans originating from 40 producing countries were received at the 2017 edition of the Cocoa of Excellence Award in France. Each country was given a limited quota as regards to the number of bean samples to submit based on some set criteria. Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire and Ecuador had the highest quota of 9 samples each. After the first physical quality evaluation, 162 samples were accepted and were carefully processed into liquor and untempered chocolate for blind sensory evaluation by a panel of international experts in the Cocoa of Excellence Technical Committee. 18 were shortlisted, received international cocoa awards. 3 Ghanaian cocoa farmers were among the 18 in the world awarded for producing quality cocoa beans. The Chief Executive Officer of Cocoa Board, Joseph Boahene Edu, said it is a boost for the local cocoa industry.
We entreat you to create the awareness on the need to maintain good flavor among your colleague farmers, because quality pays. Encourage them to give off their best by maintaining the quality of good flavor of our cocoa through good fermentation.
Meanwhile, Cocoa Board again denied a report that Japan rejected Ghana's cocoa because it did not meet the Japanese food sanitation law.
We've sold about 42,000 tons of cocoa to Japan, so there's no issue whatsoever. Ghana cocoa has always been the yardstick to measure the quality of cocoa. There is no problem with our cocoa. It is the best you can find, and the business we do with Japan has always proven so that yes, indeed, our cocoa is the standard.
All right, so thanks for staying with us on News 360. Time for business. My name is Nanikia Mensah Brampa. Beginning with tonight, the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana has asked government to scrap the special petroleum levy of 15% from the petroleum price build-up. Close to 50% of the total cost of fuel in Ghana at the pumps, it argued, are taxes with a special petroleum tax alone pegged at 15% at the ex-pump price. COPEC Ghana considers the special petroleum tax as not only nuisance but avoidable in the face of rising crude prices on the world market. The special petroleum tax, SPT, was introduced in 2015 to show up some revenue at the time when international market prices had dipped below $30 per barrel. Vice Chair of COPEC Council and General Secretary of the Industrial Commercial Workers Union wonders why the tax has not been scrapped. COPEC argued since world market prices started peaking from late 2016, it finds this particular tax unsustainable at current levels of above $60 a barrel.
Around that time, we saw the disturbance that came on the government budget. So its introduction was needful at the time. But right now that the prices are surging up, and we've now reached over $60 per barrel, we think that 15% in the price build-up should be cleared from there. Calling for scrapping because the essence for which it was introduced is now obsolete.
Close to 50% of the total cost of fuel in Ghana at the pumps are taxes. Special petroleum tax pegged at 15% on ex-depot price position currently translates into Ghanaians paying on each gallon of 4.5 litres a tax burden of 2 cedis 39 pesos.
COPEC believes a gallon of petrol and diesel at the pump should not be sold beyond 18 Ghana cedis instead of the current unbearable rate of above 20 Ghana cedis per gallon.
COPEC and ICU indicated other avoidable taxes on the petroleum price build-up need a further downward review as government makes some serious gains or incomes with a surge in world market prices of crude, since Ghana is also a crude producing country that enjoys all the positives with any increases on the international market.
Anytime the cedi loses value to the dollar and other international currencies amidst rising and stable global oil prices, the ex-refinery prices of the petroleum products increase.
Petroleum prices in Ghana are among the highest in the world in terms of some oil-producing and non-oil producing countries in cedis terms. Egypt and Algeria sell a gallon at the equivalent of 7 Ghana cedis 74 pesos, Nigeria at 10 Ghana cedis per gallon, Angola sells fuel at the pump at 16 Ghana cedis 50 pesos a gallon, Liberia at 16 cedis 50 pesos per gallon, while a gallon of petrol goes for 17 cedis 70 pesos per gallon in Benin. Dubai's price is the equivalent of 12 cedis a gallon, 15 cedis 40 pesos a gallon for the USA, 15 cedis 27 pesos for Russia, while a gallon sells at 20 cedis 83 pesos in Ghana. And at 20 cedis 83 pesos for the first pricing window of February, there are predictions that prices will go up again. Let's see how that turns out. But away from that now, the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority is putting together new strategies to contribute to the creation of an enabling environment for business. Commissioner in charge of Customs, Isaac Krenzel, said this will help facilitate cross-border movement of goods whilst also tackling corruption. Evidence-based research recognized internationally suggests that customs can contribute to creating an enabling business environment. It is for this reason the World Customs Organization is focusing on a secure business environment for economic development as a theme for this year's Customs Day. Such an environment will help businesses, especially micro, small and medium-scale enterprises, expand their activities and create incentives for them to participate more fully in international trade, thereby boosting economic growth and raising living standards.
Customs must strive to build an environment that is fair and sustainable. The importation of illegal goods, such as goods that infringe intellectual property rights, or legal goods, which, for example, are smuggled into a country to avoid the payment of duty or whose value has been misreported, can do immense harm to a country's economy.
Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Kofi Nti, encouraged the Customs Division to focus on their core mandate and work towards international trade standards. A Deputy Finance Minister, Kweku Kwarteng, was elated the Customs Division is on track in achieving best practices in their operations.
International trade security requires certainty of the successful movement and exchange of goods and services, including their safe delivery in the international supply chain. The processes and procedures for importation, exportation and clearance of goods must be convenient, timely, and certain.
As part of the Customs Day celebrations, partners and key stakeholders were acknowledged for their contribution in trade facilitation. And the Minister for Tourism, Arts and Culture, Catherine Afeku, has reiterated the ministry's determination to ensure that Ghana remains the preferred tourism destination in West Africa. She was speaking at the launch of the 2017 Ghana Tourism Awards here in Accra.
The 13th edition of the awards will be held on March 4, 2018, to honor organizations which have dedicated their resources to promoting the tourism sector. The sector minister, Catherine Afeku, said, with Kenya and South Africa leading the pack in Africa, Ghana is making steady progress.
The two most significant policies that you will see a lot of this year is aggressively marketing Ghana as a preferred destination in West Africa and eventually in the entire continent.
The award ceremony will comprise 5 main categories: accommodation, catering, travel, media, and outstanding contribution categories.
When it comes to the issue of service excellence, the National Tourism Awards seeks to promote that and seeking to reward those who have excelled in the various categories within the hospitality industry. Promoting responsible tourism is one of our cardinal principles to ensure that we are not just marketing tourism, but we are marketing a responsible tourism.
Prior to the national event, regional awards will be held simultaneously to whittle down the number of awardees.
And talking about the property market, Accra property market is booming with developers, but very expensive for purchase or rent by prospective customers. Now, Airport Residential Area currently stands as the capital's most expensive area and is mostly patronized by expatriates.
The skylines are brightening, the buildings are getting taller, bolder, and the prices are inching up. Airport Residential Area, cantonments, East Legon, and recently Spintex These are the major names that come to mind when you talk of luxury commercial and residential properties in Accra. In mid-2013, the average price of a house in Accra was 315,000 Ghana cedis, equivalent to $69,306.30 US. 5 years on, housing prices have increased. At the airport residential area, the most notable residential property in the area is Villaggio Vista, an apartment in its high-end 22-floor towering residential address cost not less than $400,000 and not more than $900,000 when furnished. Yes, not affordable to the ordinary Guinean. Jemima Fenteng Chum is the sales executive at Shandonia Properties.
In airport residential area, a land is in the range of $1 million US. Note, that's just a plot of land. That's a standard plot of land. The rent in the range of $300 US and $5,000 US or more. This is because of the interest of people, as I said, the comfort, the serenity, the security, and then the proximity to center of Accra. Lately, I would say there's been lots of developmental projects. We are getting more immigrants than before. Coming from the Western countries, I mean, they would want something which is similar to what they were living in.
Supervisor at Casabella residence at airport, speaking off camera, said most expatriates patronize the facility as compared to Ghanaians, with a 24-room apartment currently accommodating only one Ghanaian, whose rent is being covered by his organization. Statistics show the most expensive area in Accra currently is the airport residential area, with an average house priced at 950,000 Ghana cedis, equivalent to $209,038 US. Other expensive areas in the capital include East Legon, 800,000 Ghana cedis, equivalent to $176,032 US. And Spintex, 600,000 Ghana cedis, equivalent to $132,024 US. The least expensive houses in Accra can be found in Medina, with an average price of 200,000 Ghana cedis, equivalent to $44,008 US, followed by Kwabena and Abokobi, with average house prices of 245,000 Ghana cedis, equivalent to $53,909 US, and 210,000 Ghana cedis, equivalent to $46,208 US. In Kumasi, the average price of a house stood at 220,000 Ghana cedis in mid-2013, equivalent to $48,408 US. In Second D Takoradi, the average house price is 180,000 Ghana cedis, equivalent to $39,607 US. Cape Coast has the least expensive houses in Ghana, at an average of 120,000 Ghana cedis, equivalent to $26,404 US.
You meet a client sometimes and the person tells you the experiences he or she has faced, and you marvel. You know, buying a land and getting the papers and starting to build, and all of a sudden someone comes to claim it. And it's something that is going on, and I think it's time the Land Commission come on board and see to it that this is taken off or is curbed.
So if you're high on the cash and looking to make a flat-out purchase, you could be looking at areas such as airport residential area and cantonments. But with a tighter budget, a rented residential property in Medina or Kwabena might serve you well. With the real estate industry booming, the middle and lower class certainly need to be cushioned with affordable housing policies. But how affordable are they? Natalie Fort, TV3 News, Accra.
The price man must pay for property. Well, the debate has started here in the News Hub, but you can continue also on our media platforms. Facebook, it's TV3 Ghana. My name is Nanekia Mensah Brampa. News 360 continues. Good evening.
Now, in entertainment news tonight, 2 years ago, the Media General Group inaugurated 2 radio stations aimed at changing the media landscape and telling stories that matter to people. Now, Onya and 3FM have not only provided the platform for fair and balanced reportage, but have also told the stories at the heart of communities across the nation. Despite the several awards won, accolades and recommendations received, the 2 stations promised the best of their work is yet to come. Short ceremonies were held at the studio of the 2 stations to mark the 2 years of impactful radio broadcasting.
The way to my yetu mejina ma yezi afi bien na ohwana wo yejuma na nkasa so se minya honzi pincha mama hondo esi mko because why yejuma pa
and let ba papa ye beka se ye nyina nkasa onua bobra papa we se odware bobra pamu enu nti ye nyina bebo mu ne apapa mu onua ya esi mu ma
in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Afi Shapa Kombe to Yambio. Afi Shapa Kombe to Yambio. Thank you to the wonderful crew here who continue to give us really good, interesting programs. And a very, very big congratulations to everybody, to all of us, from those who started to those who are taking it forward. And congratulations all around. Those of you who are tuning in for the first time, we expect you to be back and call your friends and ask them to tune in because you have the very best shows on 3FM. Happy anniversary.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
It's now time for some international news.
President Donald Trump has told global finance leaders he will always put the U.S. first when it comes to trade, but that does not mean America alone. The U.S. is open for business, he said in his inaugural address to the World Economic Forum in Davos on Friday. But he continued to attack predatory trade practices, warning partners that the U.S. would not tolerate unfair trade. Mr. Trump's election campaign centered on America First, aiming to protect local manufacturers from foreign competition. This policy appeared to contradict the Davos Conference's goal of promoting globalization and cooperation.
Right, so that's basically it for News 360 tonight. But for those of you who are in Kumasi who want to audition for Talented Kids Season 9, don't forget that your second day of auditions is tomorrow at the TV3 premises in Kumasi. So you can go in your numbers and make sure that you might be able to bring the crown to Kumasi. Absolutely. My name is Alfred Akansi. On behalf of the rest of the team, we're grateful. Good evening. Good evening.